Hi, my name is Wilczek and I'm the founder of the Wolfson blog and YouTube channel on audio programming. In the previous episodes of this tutorial series, we've looked into how to set up WebView GUIs in your audio plugins using JUCE version 8, and then we discussed how to communicate from the C++ backend to the JavaScript frontend and from the JavaScript frontend to the C++ backend. In this episode, we'd like to look into how we can use a local development server to display the UI of our plugin. So far, we have always served the files, let's say statically, from the C++ backend. So we read those files in C++ and turned them to the front-end. But there may be situations where you would like to have a development server running. And for example, you'd like to leverage some of the other components of your ecosystem for some reason. Maybe it's easier for you to work directly in the browser than in what the WebView provide on different operating systems. And you can definitely do so. First, of course, what we need to do is we need to start a local development server. So let me navigate to our plugin UI folder. So here I'll go to plugin UI and we'll go public. And what I'm using here, I want to use the HTTP server node package to run our server. So we're gonna go simply npx http-server. Okay, exactly, and our server is running. So let me just open it. And it's here. So as you can see, we have just the WebView portion of our backend. And of course, these values are undefined. And how does it work? Well, because as you can see, there's no C++ backend available. So JUCE frontend library defaults like it works, but it cannot provide any C++ features. So you get this communicate here like window, JUCE object is undefined, native integration features will not work. Defining a placeholder window JUCE object. And here you can see that when we try to call, get native function for native function, it doesn't work because, well, the JavaScript frontend or the JUCE JavaScript frontend library doesn't know this. But nevertheless, it still works, right? It still displays. So maybe using this in the browser is not the best idea, but we can definitely still use this approach in our WebView plugin. So let's go to our project here, and here in plugin editor, we have this line that says go to resource provider root, and this will always call our resource provider to ask for files. But what if we have a local development server? Well, that we probably want to go to this server instead of the resource provider. So here, what I'd like to do, I'd like to define, the address of our development server. And, this is here. I can copy simply this address. I can define like this, local dev server address. Okay, and mind you that this will be different on Android emulator. You can check out WebView plugin demo from JUCE to see how it's handled there. Okay, but for now, since we're on Windows, let's copy this. It will also work on Mac. And we'll go here. We'll comment this part out and we'll go WebView, go to URL, and we'll simply pass our local dev server address. So I'll open a new terminal. Since I changed my C++ code, I now need to rebuild this. Well, what it also provides, another benefit, is that here in our get resource, we need to specify this specific path to our folder where the files are. And this is not very handy. This is definitely not something you will use in your, released plugin. So local development server is one way to mitigate this, because you just need to, you can have your UI code wherever. You can start your development server there, and you can simply point your web view to this address and display it from there. You don't need to deal with these paths on the file system. And then, once you ship your plugin, then you probably want to package your WebView UI in some other way. And this will be the topic of one of the future tutorial episodes. But for now, let's say we just want to avoid the specific folder on the user system. So we specify go to URL and we specify this local dev address. So now what we need to do, I need to, of course, build this because I changed the C++ side. Okay, and it did build. So let me run this. Okay, and as you can see, it read out everything that's necessary, right? So like the values get injected, that's awesome. I call these buttons, they still work, right? This works. But as you can see, we don't get any more calls to our resource provider, right? So now the resource provider is not used at all. We're just using the local development server. So before we move on, I just wanted to briefly mention that there are a few things that may be misleading here. So of course you can still do your inspection and so on, but what I found out is sometimes you need to do a hard refresh to like really force the WebView engine to refresh the files that it takes, especially if you modify, the JavaScript files. And then what's helpful there, it's simply Ctrl-Shift-R for reset, and on Mac it's gonna be Command-Shift-R. So you then force reset of your WebView, and then you're guaranteed to run on the latest version of your JavaScript files that you have there, that they are, not cached. Okay, so let's check out if this also works in a digital audio workstation. For this, what I need to do, I need to copy the build plugin. In my case, it's VST plugin to the folder on the disk where the DAW digital audio workstation will be able to read it from. So I'll go to build, plugin, and then I have this JUCE WebView plugin artifacts, debug, VST3, and here's this folder, resources, JUCE WebView plugin, VST. So let me just copy this path. Okay, and let me just go CP, and I want to copy this to C, program files, common files, VST3. Okay, and as you can see, access is denied because it's a system folder, so I need to do it manually per file explorer. Okay, as you can see, I have a session here in Audacity, and I have one track here, and I have my JUCE WebView plugin here. I can open it and it works perfectly, right? I have this, can call C++ function, I can emit a frontend event, and this still runs in the digital audio workstation, and this is a local server, right? It's not served from a specific folder on the disk. So it's really, really cool. Okay, in this point in the tutorial, we have our plugin, and it has part of its interface in C++, part of it is WebView, and we can call a local development server from the WebView to display its contents, and still the C++ backend is there, but it just not ask for resources. But what if we still want to have a local development server, but we want to ask for specific resources from the C++ backend, and we can still do this simply by obtaining the C++ backend address in our JavaScript frontend. But for this, we need to also specify that we allow, an arbitrary address to get to our JUCE backend. So what I mean by this? So in our index.js, let's say we want to retrieve some resource, right? So what we can do, maybe I'll specify this here. We can go fetch, right? So we want to get some resource, and then we'll say JUCE get backend resource address, and I don't know, let's call it data.txt, and we then call then response, and we return response text, and then we get, you know, text from backend, and we can console log text from backend. Right, so let's see if this will work. We have not, you know, changed anything in C++, so let's run our standalone plugin again. And let us inspect it. So we get, okay, failed to load resource net, error name not resolved. So, okay, we called JUCE backend / data.txt, and there was no resource like this. And that's because in our get resource function, we just read the resources from the files. We're not there's no file data.txt. We're not handling it in any other way. So what we should do here is we need to say, okay, if resource to retrieve is the special case of data.txt, then we should, you know, return this data. So we're going to create JUCE dynamic object and ptr, and this will be, we'll call this data. I'm sorry for this generic name. New JUCE dynamic object. Okay, and then we'll say data set property, and we'll call this sample property, and we'll set it to, let's say, 30, and then we'll turn it to a string. And this can be done with JUCE JSON to string and data.get. And now we need to turn this into a memory input stream to turn it into bytes. So we'll have JUCE memory input stream, and now string get char pointer. This is completely analogous from the WebView plugin demo. And then we have string get num bytes as UTF-8, and then false. Okay. And we can return our resource. So it's JUCE WebBrowserComponent resource. Actually, I think we already defined an alias for this. So we'll just call it resource, and we'll call stream to vector, and we'll pass here the stream, and we'll also pass here JUCE string application JSON. Okay, so we're sending a JSON as a TXT file. Well, maybe we can improve this. We could call, okay, this is data.json, and here we also ask for data.json. Okay, it doesn't matter for now. Okay, and let us compile this. CMake. So what we're doing here is we're handling the data.json specific case of asking for a resource. Okay, let's run our plugin. Once again, let's open the console. Okay, so it still asks for data.txt, so I'll do hard reload. Okay, and what you get, access to fetch at data.json from origin has been blocked by course policy. No access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource. So what does it mean that we failed? It means that we made, a request to C++ backend from a local development server, and the JUCE backend said, okay, this is not allowed, right? Because we have not agreed. We cannot accept any request from any address. So, but we still, right, want to have our local development server, and we still want to handle some resources from the C++ backend. So once again, we can have our WebView with completely C++ backend supported functionality. And there are no network requests. The C++ backend just returns the files that we request, or it says that these files do not exist, these resources do not exist. Then we can have a local development server, and a WebView can talk just to the local development server. But now we're in a situation where we want to have the local development server, want to display it, but we want to ask for some specific resources from the C++ backend. And for this, we were asking, this get backend resource address, right? So that we can ask for data.json. And now we need to allow the request from a local development server are handled by a C++ backend. And for this, there's a nice parameter here. It's called allowed origin in. So I can simply pass here local dev server address, and I can call get origin. And if we look at the documentation of with resource provider, the second argument is allowed origin in, and it allows you to handle requests from this specific address, explicitly. Okay, so let me clear this. Let me build our plugin once again. Okay, and let's open our console. Okay, exactly as you can see, we asked for data.json and we got our sample property, which is equal to 30. So this is a very powerful mechanism where you can still have your local development server, but you can ask for some resources directly from the C++ backend. Where would it be useful? It could be useful, for example, that you have, some audio analysis data going on. For example, it could be spectrum data, it can be output level of your plugin, and you want to display it in your WebView GUI using specifically web technologies. And then you can emit a C++ event from the backend saying, okay, this data is available, this data got updated, and then the WebView can decide if they fetch this data or not, and then display the result. And actually in the next episode of this tutorial series, we'll look exactly at an example of how to retrieve the output level of your plugin and display it as a kind of a gain meter in your WebView UI. So in this episode, we looked at how to run a local development server hosting your WebView UI. And as you can see, you can simply connect to this local development server. Sometimes you need to do this hard refresh to be up to date with your JavaScript files. And then you still can ask for resources specifically on the C++ side by calling JUCE get backend resource address. And then you need to specify that you can handle, requests from the local development server when you're returning them. Otherwise, you get this issue of, we get a request from a different website that the C++ backend is aware of. So that's it for this episode. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Take care.